Hey guys, welcome back to Friday Knits. It's been a minute. I haven't been here for a while, so I was actually editing my video right now and I realized I hadn't been on here, so I just thought I'd jump on and say hey and thanks for watching this video. Obviously if you're here to knit this shrug, so I'm going to show you how to do that. It's a pretty step-by-step video and it's for beginners and for experienced knitters, so I've got it all chaptered, so if you're a bit more experienced you can probably skip over a lot of it, but if you're a beginner you can just follow through with the steps until you get it, and that's totally okay. So the pattern itself, it comes in two. I actually haven't written it yet, so I don't know. If you just jump on my website you can have a look. Having said that, if you do jump on my website you can follow along the written pattern along with the video as well. The pattern itself is a 2x2 rib, you can see there, and it's also worked from the top down, which I prefer because I love working top down, so I'll work anything I can top down. So yeah, I just wanted to jump in here and say that and say hey, and we will get straight into the video. To get started, we are going to need a pair of short needles for the sleeves, 4mm short neck needles, a pair of, not a pair, but a knitting barber. If you guys don't have one, then please like get one, because it is like game changing. It's so you can transfer your stitches, which I'll show you later in the video, onto your needle. If you don't have this, you can use scrap yarn, which is totally fine. It's not as cool, but it's fine. So I'm going to be using the baby wool, which is a DK weight yarn. You can use any DK weight yarn you want. You'll also need a pair of 4mm longer cable needles because you're working the bodies flat, so you just need a pair of longer ones. Here they're either 100cm or 80cm. I don't really remember, but either one will be fine. And then you don't really need this, but it's like a yarn butler. Someone mentioned it was a yarn butler, which I thought was cute, and it's basically to put your yarn on so that it can spin around as you pull, if you pull from your yarn from the outside. You'll also need about 6 stitch markers and a yarn needle, and anything else, if I've forgotten, it'll be written down in the pattern. So the first thing you want to do is work a gauge swatch. This pattern is worked in 2x2 ribs, so it will end up being quite different, I think, for everyone. I've designed it to be sort of oversized, so if you don't match the exact same gauge as I get, like if you're 1 stitch off or whatever, then that's fine. So to cast on, I use a long tail cast on. It's just my preferred method. I have no other reason for it. You can use any cast on you want. I do this method where you wrap your yarn around your needle 10 times, and then from that should be how many stitches it equates to when you cast on your stitches. So because I'm casting on about 60 stitches, I counted like 6 strands, and then you do a slip knot from there, and then that should mean you don't have a long tail left over at the end. That's the theory anyway, but I think I did end up having a bit of a long tail anyway, so I don't really know. To cast on a long tail cast on, you hold it like a slingshot, I guess is the best description. I've never held a slingshot, so I don't even know if that's a accurate description. But then you move your needle under the yarn on your thumb and then over the yarn on your finger, if that makes any sense. So once you've cast on your stitches, we are going to be placing markers in our first row. So this first row is actually going to be the wrong side of your work. So to begin, we're going to purl the first 3 stitches and then place a marker. And these stitches are the front raglan. Begin working in patterns, so you begin with a knit 2, purl 2, and we're going to do this for about 10 stitches. That's for my size, so if you're doing the other size it'll be whatever stitches it is on that. After you've placed that marker, you're going to purl 2 and then place another marker, and that's one of your back raglans, and then you work across your back stitches. I don't have the pattern in front of me, so from memory I don't remember, it was like maybe 20 something stitches. So now we finished working up our first row. So onto row 2, this is the right side of your work. We are going to slip this first stitch knitwise because it's going to be our edging, and then we're going to knit 2, and we're going to begin our increases on this row as well, and every right side row has increases. So we're going to slip the marker and we're going to make a left leaning increase. To make a left leaning increase, you pick up your bar between your stitches from front to back, and then you knit through the back loop, which I'm demonstrating quite terribly here because I think my stitches got caught. And then you continue working in your pattern, and what that means is, because it's a 2x2 rib, if you see purl stitches, you purl them. If you see knit stitches, you knit them. So as you increase as well, your pattern will become irregular as you work them. So there'll be a time where you're knitting 1 stitch and then going purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, and then knitting 1 stitch or something at the end. But just work your stitches as they appear. So when you reach your next stitch marker, you're going to make a right leaning increase. So you're going to pick up your bar from back to front and then knit through the back loop. Slip your marker, work your raglan, and then slip your marker again, and then you're going to work a left leaning increase like we did at the beginning. So you're going to pick up your bar from front to the back, and then work through the back loop. Continue to work in pattern to your next marker, and then you will do a right leaning increase. So you work your raglan and then slip your marker, and then you are going to make a left leaning increase. And then you work to your final marker, and there you will work a right leaning increase. So you pick up your bar from back to front, and then knit through the front loop, and then you slip your marker and work your last 3 stitches by knitting 2 and then slipping the last stitch knitwise. As a general tip, your 3 stitches on either end will never change, so don't do any increases on those ends. Those are the edges of your front raglan. For the wrong side now, you just work your stitches in pattern as they appear. So because you worked increases, the stitches that you work will be a purl 1 and then knit 2, purl 2, etc. On your wrong side, don't work any increases, don't work anything, just work your stitches as they appear. and your end stitches will be purled. You don't slip them. The slipping only happens on the right side. So for the next row, you're going to do the exact same increases. So you're going to be doing knit increases. So this basically just repeats what you just saw before. So if you feel confident enough, you can go ahead and skip ahead. So because 2x2 rib is actually a reversible stitch, it looks the same on both sides. What I like to do is actually place a stitch marker so I know which side is the right side or the wrong side. So here I've marked the wrong side, so I know that when I'm on the wrong side, I just have to work my stitches across without increasing, and it will really help in the long run, especially if you get confused. You can also look at the edges to see like your first 3 stitches should be knit stitches, but I just find it easier to have a stitch marker there. So now we're going to increase our stitches purlwise to keep up with that 2x2 rib pattern. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make a left leaning increase purlwise. So to do that, we pick up the stitch from front to back, and the yarn should be in front. I'll move my yarn from back to front in a sec. And you want to pick up the back stitch through the back loop and then purl it, and you pick up the back loop from back to front, so it creates like this twisted stitch. And then you work to the next stitch marker and you'll make yourself a right leaning purl increase. So to do that, you pick up the bar from back to front and then work a purl through the front loop. And those are the 2 increases that you work across the row. If you feel confident enough in these increases, you can go ahead and skip this part. Just make sure you work your next row with the purl increases, and then repeat the increases again for as long as you need. So once you work all your increases to the length you want, then we can start putting stitches on hold. I worked mine to about 7.5 inches, but if you prefer it a bit looser along the underarms, you can definitely work a little bit longer. Just make sure you end in pattern so that all your stitches are still in pattern. So if you work along your row, it'll be knit 2, purl 2 without any interruptions. So next we're going to put the sleeves on hold in order to just work the body down a little more. So to do this, I'm going to use my knitting barb. I'm going to work the first 3 stitches as normal and then place the rest of the sleeve stitches on hold. The next thing I'm going to do is join my front raglan to my back stitches and also cast on stitches for my underarm. So I chose to cast on stitches for my underarm using the knitted cast on. To do that, I turn my work and then just cast on 6 stitches. You can cast on any number of stitches that is a multiple of 4 plus 2. So for example, 4 stitches plus 2 is 6. Or you can cast on 10 stitches because 8 is a multiple of 4 plus 2 is 10. So I think those two are probably the best options, is 6 or 10 stitches. I probably wouldn't go any more because it can get quite stretchy. So now I've cast on my stitches. All I'm going to do now with my working yarn is just continue working across my back stitches. When you get to your other sleeve, just do the exact same thing. Make sure your raglan stitches are worked as well and don't place them on hold. So once you've cast on all of your underarm stitches, you turn your work and you will just work everything in pattern until the end. And you'll do this for several rows, work back and forth until you reach the length you want. I worked mine for an extra inch or so, maybe ½ inch. And then I decided to put my stitches on hold because I actually wasn't sure if that was going to be the final length I wanted. So I just wanted to keep them on hold and see if I wanted to work them up again. However, if you've worked it to the length you want, you can skip ahead to the bind off and see how to bind off those stitches. So I actually had a whole tutorial on how to work these sleeves. However, my SD card completely cooked itself, and by the time I realized I had worked the sleeves down, and if anyone's worked sleeves, you know that I am not going back. So please accept this below average tutorial of picking up for the sleeves. So for your sleeves, you can transfer your stitches onto your short 4mm needles. And then for the underarms, I'm going to show you here how to pick up for the underarms so you don't have any gaps or holes. So it is a little harder than picking up standard stockinette or something, you want to pick up along the row that is just below where you cast on. So you don't want to pick up those cast on stitches, you want to pick up just below it. And because you worked in 2x2 rib from the top down, when you pick up it won't be those perfect columns. So you sort of have to just make up your own columns because the stitches will be a bit weird and wonky. So for example here, you could sort of see like a V stitch, and I picked up in the left leg of the V stitch. And then for the purl stitch, I picked up in the front, from the front to the back for the purl stitch. When you pick up, you will also pick up one extra stitch on either side because there's a little section where you have your cast on underarm stitches and your stitches that you transferred onto your needle. There's a little gap. So you want to fill it in, and the best way is to cast on an extra stitch and then bind that stitch off. So I think I'm trying to show you, like, imagine you've worked your first round in pattern and then you've reached to your underarm again, and now you want to knit the two edge stitches together on each end, and then you'll be back to your 6 stitches. I'm pretty sure that's what I'm trying to demonstrate here. Yeah, anyway, I hope that makes sense. I will link other tutorials to demonstrate it a lot better. They won't be in 2x2 rib, I couldn't really find any, but they might explain it a bit better. To bind off the sleeve stitches, I use Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off because I just wanted my bind off to be stretchy. And to do that, you work your stitches in pattern as they appear, but you work an extra yarn over stitch and then slip the first 2 stitches over the 3rd stitch. And then you just continue to do that until you reach the end of your cuff. You don't have to work a stretchy bind off as well if you don't want to. If you choose to, you can work just a regular bind off. I prefer to work a stretchy bind off just because I wanted it to have that little flare at the end. When you finish working your bind offs, I would just cut a long tail and then seam through your first stitch to your last stitch. To do that, I go through the little V-shaped stitch from the back to the front, and then again from the front to the back, and then just weave in your ends, which is a first. I never weave in my ends right away. I would just usually leave it. So to bind off for the hem, I chose to work a not stretchy bind off. This is just a very basic, simple bind off to use. So you just work your stitches in pattern as they appear again, and then you slip the first stitch over the second stitch on the needle, and continue doing that until the end of your row. Once you've completed your work, I would suggest blocking your shrug because it will help you shape it a bit better, and it will, yeah, even out those stitches really nicely. When I was laying out my shrug, I actually didn't use any pins. I just didn't really feel the need to, because it was baby alpaca. It sort of weighed itself down anyway, and I didn't really want to put any pins in it, but you definitely can use pins. And I made sure to line up my front raglan to my back raglan so that it was even. So I hope you guys enjoy this. Please tag me on Instagram if you do make one. I would love to see it. I think this is so perfect for the holiday season coming up, but I think it's perfect for every day as well. I just imagine wearing this over like dresses and tank tops and more things that I cannot think of right now. If you do want to see my inspiration and style edits, you can check them out on my website. I will link them below for you. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys next time.